I made this dress. Ugh, not this dress, this dress. Though I did actually make that dress too. But for today's video, I am going to be spilling the tea on this dress, my fabric roulette spin number 3. So if you want to sip up all of this tea, then please keep on watching. Hey Stitches, it's your girl Kris. Welcome or welcome back to my channel on social where it is completely cool to obsess over sewing. Now you guys, I am here today to share with you my March fabric roulette make. And guys, spoiler alert, I freaking love her. This make is going to get a good 9 out of 10. But why 9 and not 10? Let me explain. So when I spun my fabric roulette wheel back in February, I landed on a navy and white polka dot and striped fabric. Now the polka dots took up the main portion of the fabric, and then the stripes formed 2 border prints, one on either side of the selvage. To be honest, you guys, it took me a good while to decide what I wanted to do with this fabric. Now, if you guys left me a comment on that video, giving me your suggestions on what this fabric should become, then thank you so much for your input. I had suggestions to make floaty trousers. I had suggestions to make a sundress, to play with the border print in an interesting way. And I decided to go with a sundress. And I'm really hoping that you guys will find that I did play with the border print in an interesting way. But what did I eventually make? I decided to make the Mimi G Jessica dress. Now the Jessica dress has been on the scene for a long time. I remember picking up this pattern really early on in my sewing journey, and I have been sewing for almost 7 years. Now I think it might have been last year, 2024, I saw Mimi G promoting the Jessica dress once again. She was giving it away free to, I think it was newsletter subscribers, if I'm not mistaken. But since I already had the dress in my pattern stash, I decided to whip it out and to make up a Jessica dress. That was 2024. Now fast forward to 2025, and here I am yet again making up another Jessica dress. In honesty, you guys, I have made this pattern, I want to say at least 8 or 9 times. Now, obviously, I don't have all of the iterations of the Jessica dress still in my closet. I have gotten rid of them over time for things like fitting and finishing and so on and so forth. Now that I know better, you guys, then I'm doing better. But I do still have my 2024 version. If I can find a picture, then I'll pop it in right here so you guys can see what that version looked like. Now, the Jessica dress, because it is such an old pattern, is not size inclusive, you guys. I'm really sorry, but it isn't. Now, even though the Jessica dress isn't size inclusive, I think it caps out at an extra large or an extra large. If I can find the sizing for the dress, then I'll pop it here on screen. But there are other similar silhouettes on the sewing market. I know that Style Arc has a sundress that is similar, and I think it is Tilly and the Buttons. Is it Tilly and the Buttons? I think it is Tilly and the Buttons that also has a similar type of vibe. So if you cannot fit into the Mimi G Jessica dress, then you do have other pattern companies that you can explore. Now I made a size medium blended out to a size large. And of course, you know your girl did a couple of adjustments. So I did a 1/2 inch full bust adjustment, and you guys, I recorded a tutorial on how to do a full bust adjustment on a princess seam bodice. So if that is something that might interest you, then keep your eyes glued to the channel. It is going to be here really soon if it hasn't made its debut already. Now, if you happen to be on the opposite side of the spectrum and you require a small bust adjustment, then I do still think that that video will be helpful for you. But instead of adding width, we're going to be removing width from the bodice. So if you have a small bust adjustment, then you can still tune in to that video. Now, in addition to my full bust adjustment, I also raised the waistline of the pattern by 1/2 inch. And I did a 1/4 inch sway back adjustment. My final fitting adjustment was to shorten the straps by 2 inches. Now I am quite petite between my shoulders and my bust line, and that often means that I have to reduce the length of my bodice pieces between shoulder and bust line. Now when it comes to straps, because I also have sloping shoulders, I find that my straps tend to drop off my shoulders, and that drives me crazy. In the past, I have used a piece of elastic and threaded it through my strap just to keep it more secure on my shoulders. I did not do that with the straps for this dress just because I wanted them to lay flat. Now, when I'm wearing this dress over time, I'm really hoping that the straps don't become an issue, but if they do, maybe, just maybe, I will go back in and add the elastic. I won't promise you guys because your girl hates doing alterations. When I have finished with a garment, you guys, I'm done. And it takes a lot for me to even consider going back to make any alterations. Now, I'm pretty sure that you are curious to see my finished dress, so let me just go ahead and grab her. All right, boos, meet my Jessica sundress. Isn't she gorgeous? Now, I tried to play around with my border print in that I used the dots for the main bodice. I also went ahead and used the dots on the main skirt, and then I used the border print at the hemline of my skirt as well as down the skirt placket. Now, when it came to the bodice, I did have a hard time trying to cut out the bodice so that the placket would match up quite nicely with the placket on the skirt. Now, the placket on the skirt is a separate placket that you have to add on after, stitch it, and then turn it around. Whereas on the bodice, you use the facing to finish off the center front of the bodice as well as right around the neckline and the arm side. And I just couldn't get the effect that I wanted. So what I ended up doing is I cut out a strip from the striped portion of my fabric and I folded it under to mimic the placket on the skirt portion. And then I top stitched it right down my center front and then basted it at the center front seam. And then I went ahead and treated that as the main side of my bodice. Now, in terms of finishing my neckline and my arm side, instead of using the facing piece that comes with this pattern, I decided I wanted to self-line my bodice. Now, when it comes to princess seams, you can just trim them down with your pinking shears. You can try to finish them off with your serger, but I don't so much like the princess seams being exposed in my garments. I like to have a really clean finish on the inside of my princess seams. And so I went ahead and I fully lined this dress so that the entire princess seam on the inside is completely enclosed. Now you might realize on the inside you can see some stripes, and this was actually my initial attempt to cut out my front bodice piece. But the stripes would just not line up, and I did not want to have like a thicker portion of stripe at the front and then have the thin portion of stripe at the placket. I didn't think that was a good look, and I really wanted it to be seamless. That meant, you guys, that I actually started constructing this dress and then I put it on hold for a couple of days because I was ruminating over what I wanted to do in order to achieve the effect that I had up here in my mind. Finally, I had a light bulb moment and I'm really happy with how it looks. Is it perfect? No, it's not. It's off by maybe like 1/8 of an inch. Does it bother me? Absolutely not. Now, I also went ahead and used the stripes at the patch pocket, and I used the stripe towards the top of the pocket, and then I used the dots towards the bottom of the pocket. I really just wanted to tie in a little bit more of the border print, and that is why I opted for the patch pocket. Now, truth be told, I much prefer to have inseam pockets like I do in this dress. This dress also had the option to do patch pockets. I ditched those patch pockets and put the inseam pockets. Now, I almost went ahead and did the inseam pockets on this dress as well, but then I thought the patch pockets was another opportunity for me to showcase the border print. So I went ahead and did that. Now that they're complete, I don't love them. This fabric is just so soft and so drapey. The pocket itself drapes. Now I did go ahead and attach the pocket to my skirt before I did my gathering because I wanted to make sure that they were even on both sides. Now I did have a quick look at the instructions just for the sake of this video, and the instructions actually tell you to sew up your skirt first and then go ahead and figure out your pocket placement. Now, I could have done it that way, but I think it would have taken me a little bit more time and effort to make sure that the pockets were even. So as I said, I did my patch pockets on my skirt before I did my gathering. Now, the last place I used the stripe was on the strap. Now, this dress actually comes with very, very thin straps. And I did go ahead and cut out the initial straps, sewed them up, turned them out, and they were just solid blue. And I thought to myself, maybe I am missing an opportunity again to showcase some more of the stripe. So I went ahead and widened my strap. I want to say like an inch or so. And then I sewed them using a 1/4 inch seam allowance instead of the 3/8 of an inch seam allowance that I used for the rest of the dress. And I ended up being able to mimic the placket on my strap. And I'm so, so, so glad that I took the time to go back and make that adjustment because I think it just ties the entire look together. Now, in terms of the button, let me pull Christina forward. I had these sort of off-white, iridescent kind of sparkly buttons in my stash. I'm not sure if you can see them nicely here on the camera, but they're really, really pretty. Now, they don't match with the white dot. I would have liked to use a white button, but of course, I did not have any suitable white buttons in my stash. The ones that I had, I found were too big and too bulky for this dress. So I just decided to use what I have, and I don't think it's too much of a big deal. I think it looks quite nice, though admittedly, I think if they were white, it would have been even better. Now, I only had 9 of these buttons in my stash, and I needed 4 for my bodice alone. Because the button is a little bit smaller, then the spacing is a little bit closer, and I definitely wanted to have a button right near my apex. Otherwise, you run the risk of having some gaping at the bust line, and I definitely did not want that. So I did my 4 buttons on my bodice, and then I put the 5 buttons on my skirt. Now, on my skirt, I did space my buttons just a little further apart. I don't think your eye will pick it up very quickly and easily because it wasn't a significant amount, but just enough so that my final button at least covers my hoo-ha, because I did not want to risk flashing anybody, and I don't think my husband would have been very happy with me if I did. Now, in the future, if I happen to find some suitable buttons in white and a lot more, maybe at least 12 or so, then I'll go in and take off these buttons and replace them with those buttons. Now, I also added an invisible snap right here at the waistline. And that is because when I tried my dress on, there was just a little bit of gapping at the tummy area. And I know what the problem is. It's that I'm fat, you guys. Okay, I'm just joking. It is my mom tum. So it's just causing the fabric to spread just a little bit at my tummy area. Of course, when I'm wearing this dress and I want to be all fancy, then I'm going to put my Spanx on so that I can have myself sucked in and just tight and just nice in my dress. But when I was trying it on, I'm like, girl, you need to do something about this tummy. Your son is almost 3. You do not have an excuse. You need to take your behind on those roads and start pounding some pavement so you can get rid of this tummy. But you guys, I am a work in progress. I much prefer to sew than to exercise, and that is going to be my downfall. Anyways, to sort of counter that, I did add the invisible snap right here at the waistline. Now, also, when I tried my dress on, there was a little bit of gapping at my bust area. Now, notwithstanding that I chose the size based on my high bust measurement, which is what I usually do, so I started off with a medium right around the high bust area, and then I blended out to the large, and then I told you that I did a 1/2 inch full bust adjustment. Now that I have tried this on, I'm wondering if maybe I should have used a size large on my front bodice pieces only, just to add a little bit more ease around the bust line and around the waistline. Now, if I'm to make this dress again, and I am going to make this dress again, you guys, because I really, really do like this silhouette on me, then I think that's exactly what I'm going to do. Start with the size large only on my bodice front pieces, and then do the medium on the bodice back pieces, because I do carry a lot more weight in my front than I do in my back. And I think that that will be the solution to the tiny bit of gapping right here at the bust line. Now, I did not mention that I did the skirt as it is intended in the pattern. I did not lengthen it. I did not shorten it. Usually I am one to have my skirts at my knee or just above my knee or even shorter, you guys. But I am embracing longer lines for this year. Now, this is the first time, I think. Is it the first time? No, that's not true. I think a very, very early iteration I had made in like a purple Ankara fabric, I did do the long length. And I think I also did it in a very large scale floral fabric that I had purchased in Guyana. I think I also did the long length in that one as well. But I've also done the long length in this one, and you guys, I feel glorious. Really, really just elevated and chic. And of course, because I only have 9 buttons when I should have quite a bit more, then it means I can easily flash some leg if I want. Now, I can imagine this dress being very dressed up in like heels and a nice little clutch, or more casual in some nice sandals and maybe like a crossbody bag and maybe even a broad hat and some big hoops. Listen, this dress has so much potential. I am so glad, you guys, that I had not already used up this fabric. This one has been in my stash for years and years. So much so that I cannot even recall where I got this fabric from. I have no idea. I'm just drawing a blank. Where did I get this fabric? When did I get this fabric? I have no idea. But I'm glad that I held onto her for just this moment. Now, last month, I was less than satisfied with my fabricroulette make. I had made Simplicity 9701, and if you missed it, you can go on over and check out this video right here. Sometimes we have sewing wins, and sometimes we have sewing fails. That one, in my mind, was a sewing fail, but I'm really, really happy that this one is a sewing win. Now, as I said, if I were to rate this dress, I would give this one a 9 out of 10. And I have deducted 1 mark just because of the fit issues at the bust area. If I had nailed that fit, you guys, I would have given this one a 10 because she is glorious. Aside from that, I think the patch pockets as well is also playing on my mind in terms of the ranking. Now, I like that I was able to accentuate the border print on the patch pockets, but I don't like that they droop. Maybe if I place them a little further apart at the top, they would be a little bit more taut. But I'm mindful about going in and unpicking the patch pockets of this skirt because I don't want to end up with lots of holes in my skirt. And this is the type of rayon fabric, you guys, that runs very, very easily. Now, despite using an 8012 Microtex needle in my machine, when I was sewing her up, I still have gotten a couple of nicks here and there. Now, they're not so obvious to you looking on, but I can see them on little areas throughout the dress, and I really don't want to add to them by unpicking both of my patch pockets. So I think I'm going to leave them as is for now. One other thing I forgot to mention, when I was doing my buttonholes, you guys, most of them came out perfectly. The 2 buttonholes that were close to the waistline seam, however, did give me a little bit of a hassle. The one on the bodice is slightly wonky towards the top. Again, nothing that anybody should be able to see just looking at me wearing this dress, but something that I noticed when I was making it. And then the one right below the waistline seam, you guys, I actually went ahead and unpicked it. And then I wanted to kick myself for unpicking it. And the reason I unpicked it was the button was not symmetrical on either sides. Something about how the automatic buttonhole foot was moving, it was slightly lower on one side than on the other. Now, in hindsight, I should have just left it as is. So I went ahead and unpicked it, and whilst I was unpicking it, I tore a small hole in the fabric, and then I went ahead and tried to redo the buttonhole. Once again, it did not come out perfectly, but when I opened my buttonhole, it was able to conceal the hole that I had unfortunately put in my fabric trying to unpick. So I just left it as is. It's not the prettiest buttonhole looking at it, especially when compared to the others, but in the grand scheme of things, it's small potatoes, because if you can see my wonky jagged buttonhole, then step back, girl. You are way too close to me for comfort. So those are my thoughts about this dress. Obviously, at the time of recording, I have not yet taken my photographs, but I will. And hopefully I shall have some to insert here and maybe here, so you guys can see what this dress looks like on. Now, maybe I should put it on really, really quickly just to give you guys an idea of what it looks like in motion. But as usual, the spacing in my recording area is so small. When I step back, the likelihood is you will not be able to see it in its entirety. So just keep that in mind as I perform this trick. Just a sec. Right, here we go. This is what my Jessica dress looks like on the body. I think she is beautiful. And look, you guys, a leg movement, a leg movement. Oh, I love it. Now, please do forgive me. I'm not wearing the right bra with the dress. I am wearing a regular bra. And when I'm wearing this dress, then I want to wear a strapless bra with this dress. Now, I also don't have any Spanx on, but I think my tummy actually looks better today than it did when I initially tried on this dress. It could be maybe I was bloated on the day and at the time that I tried it on. But secondly, remember I told you that I put the invisible snap right here at the waistline seam. Now, these are my pockets, and I do think they add a little something something to this skirt. I just wished that they were just a little bit more taut, just like so, but it is what it is. Now, I'm not sure if you can see just the tiny little bit of gaping right here at the bust line. Maybe it is that I'm making a big deal out of nothing. I can see it, maybe you cannot, but there is a tiny bit of gaping right here that I think could have been remedied if I used the size large just on the front piece only. I did also forget to mention that in addition to doing my full bust adjustment, I did lower the apex of this bodice by 1/2 inch. Now, my girls do not sit up on my chest nice and proudly like they did when I was a teenager. I have had 2 kids, and unfortunately, that means gravity is playing around with your girl. And so I did adjust my pattern pieces by lowering the apex by 1/2 inch. I did forget to tell you. Now, all in all, she is gorgeous. Despite the imperfections in this make, she really, really is a banger, at least in my opinion. Now, if you guys like my dress as much as I do, then drop me a comment down below and let me know, what rating would you give this dress? Do you think I did justice to this fabric? Do you like how I played around with the stripes and the dots in this border printed fabric? Do you think that something else would have worked better? I am curious to find out all your thoughts in the comment section. So let us move the conversation from off the screen and put them down below in the comments. Now, if you enjoyed today's video, be sure to go ahead and give your girl a thumbs up. And if you have gotten this far in today's video and you are not yet a subscriber, then go ahead and click that subscribe button, turn your notification bell on, and that means you will never ever miss any chance to hang out here on YouTube with your girl. Now, until next time, you guys, stay calm, stay cool, stay safe, and absolutely keep sewing. Peace.